Hi all, I'm Raghav and this is my Unity Fundamental Self-Round-1 Assignment 5 and today I'm going to discuss about the following two questions. So the first question is, suppose you have a player and bunch of enemies and you only want a collision to happen between player and enemies and there should not be any collision between enemies and enemies. How would you solve this problem? And second is, what is a rigid body and what are different types of rigid bodies? So coming back to the first question, so if I want collision to happen between only enemies and enemies, so what I could do is first of all, let's see, yeah, first I will set up the layers for both of the enemies. So imagine there is a player and there is an enemy. So in this case, let's imagine this is a enemy and this is also an enemy. So before before setting up the layers, if their layers are different, then the collision would happen like this. But if the collision are if yeah, so first I would set up the layers. I could set up the layers by clicking on the layers, add a layer, and I could just add any layer. So there is the platform layer and there is the object layer, and I would use these layers as an example. So first I would is I've added the object layer over here and platform layer over here and showed you the example of how this will collide with each other. The second is I would go to the collision matrix over here, and you can see over here there are object and object and platform and platform, yeah, over here. So what this collision matrix means is that these layers can interact with each other, but collision will happen when object layer will collide with object layer. So first of all, I would just disable this object layer with object layer. Okay, so let's see what will happen if I just change the platform layer to object layer. So now these two are enemies and they both have same layers and the collision matrix on both of those are disabled. So when I just press the play, it will pass through each other. So the thing happened is that when they are on the same layer and in the collision matrix, the in the collision matrix, a layer on both of the collision is set to false. That on the same layer means they cannot collide with each other. So in that case, in this case, I will just set up the enemies to both the enemy layer, and I will just disable the collision matrix so that they can interact with each other. But if I haven't disabled the collision matrix over here, like if I have just enabled it over here like this, and if I just play the game, so collision will happen over here in this case, as you can see like this. So I have to remove or disable the collision between these two layers. So that's how I will do this. So second question is, what is rigid body? And uh, second question is, what is rigid body and different types of rigid bodies? Yeah. So a rigid body is a component that is used to simulate the physics-based movements and interactions for the game objects. So it allows the objects to respond to forces like gravity, apply forces to other objects, and detect collisions and apply appropriate responses to those as well. So there are three different types of rigid bodies. First one is dynamic rigid body, second is kinematic rigid body, and third is static rigid body. So dynamic rigid body is most commonly used type. So it simulates a realistic physics behavior and responds to external forces like gravity and collisions. So it can move freely in the game world and has its own motion determined by the physics calculations. The second is kinematic rigid body. It is typically used for objects that needs to be moved with the help of code or program. So these kind of rigid body are not affected by the gravity and physics system. They are only used to move by program. And the third kind of rigid body would be static rigid body. So this kind of rigid body do not move under any simulations at all. So they are not affected by gravity, they are not moved through by the code, So if anything collides with it, the static rigid body behaves like an immovable object as it has infinite mass. That's all. Thank you.